Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. So joining me today is Coach Casey Perlstein. Coach Perlstein is the head coach at Perkiomen School in Pennsburg, Pennsylvania. He's been coaching football now for 9 years, 6 years in the eight-man game. He was named the head coach at 24 years old. After his first year as head coach at Perkiomen School, they switched to eight-man that following year, and they became the first eight-man football team in the history of Pennsylvania. They then played one season in a league in New England before starting their own league with 3 other schools in Pennsylvania that now play eight-man. The league has since expanded to now 8 schools in the league. Within his 6 years of coaching eight-man at the school, they've been in the league championship game 3 times in a row and have won it once. Well, Coach, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So I always start with a little bit of background information. So just start by telling us a little about yourself and your high school playing days and how you got into coaching football.
So growing up, did not know anything really about eight-man until I got into coaching here at the school I'm currently at. But I played 11-man in high school here in southeastern Pennsylvania. I played quarterback. Started for 2 years, but got some action as a sophomore. I had a lot of success. Statistically, you could say I was kind of a dual threat guy before those were really common. And then I went to play at Kutztown. Played for 3 years. Had some things not go my way. Wish could have done some things differently. But after I stopped playing football at Kutztown, which is a Division II university, I took a job at my alma mater coaching. I missed the game, wanted to stay into it. And really, I wanted to kind of give back to my town and try to help kids, kind of steer them in a direction so, some of them didn't make mistakes like I did, in college. Not big ones, but just, helping kids stay in the right path and have a good experience. So I started doing that. I was about 21, 22 and loved it right away. Like, my friends would get so, upset with me when I would leave college on a Friday night to go coach a high school football game, but I loved it. After that, I got a job that allowed me to keep coaching. But after year 3 out of college and everything, and my job is like, okay, we kind of want to move you up the ladder here a little bit. So you'd have to give up coaching. So I went talking to some friends that were teachers and coaches, and just by chance, one of my childhood friends was working at a private school in a town we grew up in. He said, we have an emergency hiring and you can get a teaching job. So I ended up there. After that year, they switched to eight-man football, and that's where I've been the last 6 years. But Pennsylvania hasn't had eight-man ever. Until we started it, we were the first program to do it in 2018. We joined a league in New England, which was interesting. They were in their 3rd year at the time. We played 6 or 7 games that year, and every trip except for 2 was 3+ hours away, there and back on a Saturday. And the reason we went eight-man was we were facing a year where, now we're a private boarding school, so our school is small to begin with. We were facing a year where team finished with 18 guys on the roster and 12 were graduating. And the 6 left were either young or had very little football experience, because we have kids from all over the world come play, which is an interesting dynamic. We have a lot of first-year guys every year playing football. So, our admin decided, we had a decision to make. It was either drop football or pioneer eight-man in Pennsylvania. So we made the jump, and the following year, after we did it successfully for a year, we had a group of 5 schools at the time ready to join and start the league next year. It ended up only being 4, including us. That's another topic. But we started a league in PA, the Keystone State Football League, and there were 4 teams total: Valley Forge Military Academy, Delaware County Christian, Perkiomen School, and Mercersburg Academy. And for 2 years, it was just the 4 schools, and we were picking up some momentum. Schools were getting interested. We were receiving phone calls. We were, still reaching out to some schools. And then COVID happened, and none of the schools played. And so we lost some momentum for a year. So we've had 2 years back since COVID. And since then, believe it or not, we actually added this past year, we added 2 deaf schools from Maryland. So the Maryland School for the Deaf and the Model Secondary School for the Deaf. So we added them. We added another PA school this year. It should have been 2, but yeah. So long story short, that was my coaching path so far.
So, I mean, obviously, you starting 8-man in Pennsylvania and getting kids from all over the world, like you said. Do you kind of use a keep it simple philosophy to teach these kids from all over, as well as teaching a game that you might not have been as familiar with? Just talk about how you do that.
Yeah, so much like you said, kind of when we were talking before we got on here, when I started coaching, I thought I knew everything, right? I played in college, played high school, and I had to learn the hard way in some of those, in some regards there. But yes, I've learned the last couple of years, simple is better, but I still try to appear complex. I try to carry a couple concepts each, and we try to appear complex, but it happens every year. By the end of the season, each week you're adding a wrinkle or two in, and all of a sudden, you've got way too big of a call sheet. And then, at the end of the season, sometimes it hurts us a little bit. So I have to continually rein myself in. But yes, having those first year guys and guys from other countries like, Africa, Germany, Spain. So a lot of guys trying football for the first time, but we also have kids that have played football for years, that just come to the school from local areas. And so I have to be able to challenge them as well and bring the other guys up to speed. So it's not easy. Challenge for sure.
And that's got to be interesting too. Is some of them kids that come from overseas or different countries, do any of them not even speak English?
So our school used to have a large population of Asian students, primarily China. So in my early years, and this has changed since COVID, my early years coaching here, we had a lot of Chinese student athletes on the team. So they struggled with simply understanding the English of what we were trying to do. And then they would get frustrated when they didn't get playing time, but they didn't understand what was going on really at all. So in that example, yeah, we would have some kids that would struggle to understand English. And that also is a challenge because you don't want them to go out there and get hurt. Oh, we did have a student this year. I'm now thinking we did have a student this year from Taiwan whose English was very low. A couple funny stories, with him. You know how in the beginning of the season, coaches always write their name on the piece of tape you put on the helmet.
Yep, yep.
Yep. So this young man, great kid, but he wrote his name in Sharpie on a brand new Speed Flex.
Oh man.
That was a good one, but yeah, some interesting times.
So I wanted to jump back a little bit more even into your league. So you said early on you were traveling, over 3 hours. Are you still traveling a lot, or is the game growing in the Northeast? Do you have any more teams in Pennsylvania that you don't have to travel as far anymore?
So, as we were talking before the interview, it's for the concept of having, I'm looking how many teams you guys have in Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska. That is a completely foreign concept to us here. People in Pennsylvania are very, very stubborn about moving to 8-man. So stubborn, and it's a little frustrating for us here trying to grow the league. Teams would rather and schools would rather go 11-man and forfeit games because of lack of players than switch to 8-man, because there's this weird stigma here because it's such a unknown game in this part of the country that it's not football. That it's not real football. But anyone that's come to watch a game at our school forgets you're watching a different kind of style of football in a few minutes because it is real football. The hits are real, everything's real, and that's how I try to explain it to people. The schools here are very stubborn. Alumni are very stubborn. Administration stubborn about switching to it if they don't have leadership that's willing to put themselves on the line to do the right thing for their kids. But, they rather have 18 guys out there playing 11 man and forfeiting games and things like that.
We do have that situation here too also, and I wouldn't say necessarily as much of a stubbornness in Kansas, but there are schools that will compete at 11 man with the same, if not less, kids than a lot of 8-man schools. When your team is struggling or you're fighting the numbers issue, I don't necessarily see the side of, why are we sticking with it? But I get it. It happens everywhere. Some people are afraid of change. So here it's awesome. We have so many, but ours is based on enrollment because we have so many small schools that they're literally, some of them couldn't even field 11 players. So they have to play 8-man. Is there any sort of enrollment cutoff there in
So,
Pennsylvania?
so because of a lot of our schools being that founded it being private schools, we kind of, or at least the leadership in our league, wanted to control who got in, but there wasn't kind of really a requirement for enrollment, but they did look into, the makeup of the school before anyone joined. But, we most of this, like I said, most schools are private schools. To go back to your other question from earlier, one school we go to is 2.5 hours away. That's Mercersburg. Maryland School for the Deaf is 2:45 to 3. So we still have some travel this year. This past year was the most we've traveled since those Connecticut days because we didn't get home field advantage in the playoffs. So we had to travel for both playoff games, and we were away at Mercersburg once. Oh, I forgot about another school. We had a school from Virginia joined, Randolph-Macon Academy. They joined this past year, and they're 4 hours away from us. So I think, the AD that was in control of our league, was basically looking at it like we have these schools wanting to join us. We're not in a position to really turn schools away at this point. We're gonna make it work. We did have another Christian academy join this year. They're gonna start up a program.
Even though the distance isn't ideal, at least you have a league and have opportunities to play 8-man games with teams around. How does that work for scheduling? If you have a 4-hour game away, is it regular schedule? You just leave extra early, or do you schedule it earlier so you have time to return home at a decent time, or how does that usually work for you guys?
There's no good way to do it in a day, but that's what we have to do. We're not rolling in dough over here where we can buy hotel rooms. We actually had a lot of kids this year, 29 kids plus coaches, for all the way in Virginia. But basically what happens if we have a game like that on a Saturday, we'll leave at 7:30, and I think that the Randolph-Macon game started at 1 o'clock this year, and that was tough. They had one of the lower records in the league, but it's so hard to get our kids off the bus after waking up, trudging on a bus, and being on there for 4 hours. It took us a whole half to wake up. And the best way I've learned this year, it took me 3-4 years, is we get off the bus and we just have them go out on the field and just force them to play catch. Like I tried the speed drills, I tried the Tony Holler feed the catch drills to wake up, the different RPR things. Best thing that worked was just go throw the football around.
The most we traveled this year was like an hour, and we have games that were within 10 minutes away of towns 10 minutes away. So we had several home games and nice, short rides. But yeah, so then I was going to talk about that too. You said you started at 1 o'clock. I think I was watching one of your games on your school website streaming service there, and I noticed it was during the middle of the day. Is that why more of the games are during the day, just because the hours?
It's just kind of like a private school thing. Games were typically played in the afternoon. Most private schools don't really have, even when we were 11 man, don't really have lights a lot of the times. So it's and just kind of way private school schedule there. And I'm a public school kid, so it was new to me. I'm still learning about private school culture, even though I've been here for 6 years. But not a lot of these schools have lights. So Saturday, 12 to 1 o'clock games, or Friday afternoon games is common. One game we played at night this year was a championship game, and that was at Maryland School for the Deaf, because they still like to play games under the lights for their fans and everything.
That's
Yeah.
cool that it was the championship and you get kind of a different atmosphere than normal.
Yeah, definitely. The kids loved it for a while until we started slipping down the scoreboard a little bit.
And how far away is that? You said almost like 3 hours?
Yeah, they're kind of near. So Mercersburg. I don't know if you're familiar with Shippensburg University. Have you ever heard that?
Uh-uh.
Division two school, Central PA. So it's in the center of the state, towards the Mason Dixon line a little bit.
Okay.
And the Maryland School for the Deaf is like 30 minutes into Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here, let me go into this next question. So I'm kind of going to jump back a little bit from where we were talking, but so you talked about obviously your high school playing days and playing in college. So talk about, was there anyone specific that, kind of pushed you or geared you into coaching?
I mean, I had some great coaches. I don't think there was anyone pushing me into coaching. It was more of, I wanted to stay involved in the game, and I felt I had something to give back to kids. And I guess I'll give a shout out to, he didn't push me into coaching, but he gave me my shot, was the current coach at the time at my alma mater, who had been at the high school for a long time, but not necessarily coaching football. He was a long-time wrestling coach. And came and told him I wanted to help out, and he essentially gave me my shot. And the more I kind of wanted to be involved, he allowed me to be involved as I want, eventually, becoming a paid member of the staff. And it wasn't an official title, but I kind of gave myself the title of pass game coordinator, just trying to bring my experience from learning the offense at Kutztown to some of the more old school guys in the high school staff at the time.
Anytime you have somebody, a former coach, especially that you get to coach under, like you said too, that's awesome. I was the same. I had a similar situation when I got started coaching. So, but here, let's get into your program a little bit then. So, what would you say kind of separates your program from others? Something you guys do differently. Obviously, like you said, you're a private school and one of the few 8-man schools in the entire Northeast part of the U.S. But what's something different that you guys do specifically?
So I'll answer that question by saying what separates our program from others at the school, because we're already different from all the other programs around us. But our school is a very heavily recruiting for basketball, for baseball, now soccer and lacrosse. So when we have those programs that are bringing in Division 1 guys, Division 1 baseball players from Puerto Rico, 4-star basketball players walking around 6'9", we have one of the best basketball programs in the country here. Our school is not football centric, like some private schools you hear about, especially in this part of the country. But our leadership wanted to keep football in, and that's kind of why, what they brought me in to do was to create a good football experience for the student body we have. We don't have kids that grew up playing football. Kids are coming out to learn the game and essentially have fun with their friends. So, what I feel like we've done well, and the various coaches I've had throughout the last 5, 6 years, is give those kids a quality experience. And whether they're multi-sport athletes, where football is their second sport, meaning like their main sport is baseball or basketball or lacrosse, and this is their fun thing they do, we give those kids a good experience that in some cases they enjoy more than their main sport. And we just like seeing them have fun and learn the game. And we've been able to win a lot of games, which is good. It's not everything, but when I have a lot of players coming up to me saying they miss football, or they're going to miss football, it's going to kill them not playing next year because they're graduating. That means then I feel like we're doing our job here.
Absolutely. That's awesome. If you can get them excited to come to practice every day, then that's half the battle. But yeah, that's awesome. Especially kids that, like you said, aren't particularly coming to play football, but they enjoy it so much that they're gonna miss it. That's cool.
Yeah, and I can't say that I've mastered making practice fun, but, I just try to show them that I care about them. Like, I care about them as people and not just what they can do on the football field or things like that. And I show them that I care. I respect their time as teenagers and people who have lives outside of football. And I think they notice that, and that is something that brings them back to the team because in some areas it's different than some of the other programs here. Because, like you said, I do like to keep practice about hour 45. I don't like to go past 5 o'clock. So
So then let's get even deeper into your program. So specifically going towards the offensive side, and like we were talking earlier, obviously you came from 11 man, but schematically speaking, just kind of talk about how you would classify your offense and talk maybe about some of the concepts that you do within your offense.
yeah, sure. My favorite thing to do. So in my early years, I was a lot of trial and error. Everything I learned about 8 man, I learned on the internet, or some coaches I was able to connect with shared some things with me. Finding or buying playbooks off this website. I don't know if it's still active, 8manfootball.net. Bought one of their playbooks. Just finding every resource I could and then trial and error. And so I've kind of developed my own kind of attack here. So we're either out of the shotgun or pistol. I try to have one of each position because I feel like at our school every year we'll have a tight end, we'll have a running back type, we will have a slot type, and we'll have some type of receiver. I feel like we can get 1 to 2 of each of those positions at our school. I could go 22 personnel and just kind of force kids into positions, but I feel like every year our team will have different guys that fit into one of those positions. So the running back, we call it our A back, is always a downhill runner type. Our wing or our slot is our more of a speed guy, a little bit more shifty that has some hands, and our tight end and split end are those traditional positions. So I've adopted some concepts from the, I don't even know if I would call it wing T, but basically we run traps, we run counters. Our misdirection was probably our main success. So we keep that. And this was the first year I really carried a GY or G tight end and 8 man counter. It's one of my favorite concepts, and we had a lot of success with that. I was always afraid to pull a tight end, but this year we went all in, and it was good. So that was our misdirection. We carry some type of pin and pull or sweep, jet sweep action, kind of a misdirection, also like a buck sweep, and then some type of option. So this year we really did well with inverted veer. We didn't have a power concept for our guys up front, so we just down blocked everything. Had a lot of success with inverted veer. Had a kid that could really run it, and we've always had speed option. Weren't that good with it this year, but that's what we had. And then our passing game is, I carry a couple quick game concepts with the slot and the split end, looking to change that up a little bit because our tight end was kind of just left on an island doing not a whole lot. We gave him an option route, but so we have some 2 man games with our quick game, and then I carry 2 to 3 drop back or play action concepts, and typically they've been a mesh type concept and a flood. We didn't run the flood this year, but I had a flood concept. We had a play action kind of rail route off of the inverted veer. So we did that as well.
If you don't mind, talk a little more about the GT or GY counter that you guys did. Like what kind of set did you run it out of, and then did you read like backside D end on it?
So this year I had like 2 formations, and we varied it up by using a lot of jet motion. No, we had 3 formations. Varied it up with a lot of jet motion and motioning into different wing sets. Our counter series, most of the year we ran it weak to the open side. And that was either, if we had a split backfield out of shotgun, there was either a crisscross action where we're faking our lead play, and coming back with our other running back underneath. Or if we had it out of a wing set, we would fake our lead play to our main running back, and the wing would come around behind. And the other way we ran it, which had a lot of success because our jet sweep was very good this year, we'd have our jet man, who was our best player, going to miss him next year. We'd have our jet man fake our jet sweep and come back with counter going the other way. So we didn't read that backside end, although I'm interested in doing that this year, but there was always a man there to seal that backside end off, whether it was window washing with the jet action or with the crisscross fake handoff, where that initial fake is picking up the D end.
So now just talk a little more about this year. So how did your team do? Like, what'd you learn most about your team this year? Just kind of talk about this season.
So this year, I felt we had the best kind of senior leadership that we've had and the best camaraderie right away. Even with new guys coming in on the first practice, everyone was locked in, and they wanted to get back to that championship game. We had lost the championship at home in overtime the previous year, so kids were ready to go, and we knew we had some talent, and we had fortunately we were worried about who we would have up front, and that's who I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about right now. Every year it's going to be that way at our school, but we had a guard 6'2", 6'3" show up out of nowhere on the first day of school, and he was our best lineman. So, but we went 7-2. Our signature wins where we upset the Maryland School for the Deaf at home. And I think that's a whole other for topic conversation, because playing deaf schools was very interesting, and these guys are good. They are football players. Some of them can't talk, some of them can talk, some of them can't hear, some of them can hear a little bit, but they are good football players. They play hard. So that could be another topic for another time. But we upset them at home. They were undefeated, and then we avenged our regular season loss to Mercersburg, our rival, in the playoffs, beating them in the last minute in the first round of playoffs. And then the championship game was going well, and we had our best player go down and some things not go our way, and that game kind of got away from us. But I would say this year is characterized by the word gritty, not the dance, but we had to grit out some wins due to some injuries and some backups playing, and we did it, and it was a great season. It was probably my favorite one yet.
And so then you reached a championship, and is it considered basically the league championship? Is that what it is?
Yeah, and then since we're the only ones in the state, you could consider it a state championship, but
Which you might as well.
Now it's a little weird that we have these schools from Maryland, and the one is DC, and then also Virginia. But yeah. So we upset that team, and then we beat our rival in the playoffs. The first time we played them, we didn't have one of our better guys, and they're a very well coached team. They're very strong this year, so we were fortunate to pull that one off at their place. Our guys really showed up that day.
Well, and going back to what you were saying there, I would definitely consider it, a state championship, or at least if nothing else, you could call it like the Keystone League State Championship, or
Yeah, no, and that's what we call it, the KSFL Championship.
Okay, yeah, and that is cool because you guys are the ones pioneering the entire 8-man existence up there, so that I would definitely recognize that for sure. So building off this last year, what do you look forward to most going into next year?
Yeah, so I've had this year. These guys getting ready to graduate in a couple weeks, but I've had guys with me for like 4 or 5 years. I've had the same core of guys since pre-COVID, and those guys, and a lot of them were linemen, are leaving. Our team MVP, who I alluded to earlier, is graduating. And the last 2 years, we were very senior laden, just by, we had first year guys come in, they were seniors, et cetera, et cetera. So it adds up to about 21 to 22 seniors in the past 2 years. So basically my job is to recruit the hallway and replenish this roster. But like I alluded to before, our school is it's not that easy to just get a kid say, hey, I want to play football. I'm going to show up to practice in August. We have kind of a weird kind of specialization culture here where we're moving that direction, but also trying to hold on to the old three-sport athletes like we used to pride ourselves on because we have all these programs bringing these athletes in. So, I have a handful of athletes from other sports say, "Hey, coach, I want to play this year." And in some cases, if they were recruited here by another coach, I have to go to that coach and essentially ask permission for them to play football, which is different. And it's a little, it's frustrating at times for me, but I understand both sides. So right now I'm going around having conversations with kids that I've talked to throughout the year who say they want to play, and we're just trying to get aligned. We need to replenish up front, and we always have a plethora of skill guys. Everyone wants to be a skill guy, but really building that line back up is going to be key for us.
That is an interesting aspect that you obviously that's different for you than compared to most, where you literally have to go ask permission from the other sport coach. Yeah, because and I get it too. If they recruited him to come there, then they might be hesitant, like, okay, he might get hurt in football. How's that
Yeah.
going to help me? But at the same time, I mean, yeah, if they want to truly build them three sport athletes or have a well rounded athlete, then yeah, that's going to be good to have them out. But yeah, I get it. It goes both ways too, like you're saying.
Yeah. So, and a thing, a fight I battle is not only, so at our private school, right? We have boarding students, so you have to have an activity after school. So the athletes usually have a sport. They pick a sport, or they pick strength and conditioning. And what it used to be in kind of the before times, and it kind of when I got here, pre-COVID and everything, your best athletes were playing three sports, and that's just how it was around the school. We had multi-sport guys, and that's what we were about. Well, now, especially ever since COVID, and we've had these programs start making the school some money. Well, now in the fall, where the options used to be limited to football, soccer, golf, cross country, we now have football, soccer, golf, cross country, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, and that's it. So not only am I fighting against the typical soccer and things like that, but I now got to battle against lacrosse kids wanting to play for me, but also being leery of missing lacrosse practice. And so it's it's not easy being a football coach when you got all those sports jockeying for a small amount of kids.
Another thing that gets me thinking when you say all them sports, I'm the athletic director here at our school, and we have a decent amount for a small school in Kansas. We have football and cross country in the fall, volleyball for girls, and then we go to basketball and wrestling during the winter. And then in the spring we have golf, baseball, softball, tennis, and track. And so for me, scheduling wise, as the AD, that's enough for me. I can't imagine your athletic director with all them sports to schedule, future schedules and all that, man.
So I think the way they handle that is, well, in the off season they're not playing, that they're mostly just training, but in these big programs, they're the ones that are considered the programs. They have guys that basically their sole job is to run that program. So they kind of take it upon themselves to schedule their off-season events,
Mhm.
and even their in-season schedules. Like our basketball coach, whose sole job is he's the director of basketball operations, like a college. He schedules the tournaments, schedules the games, schedules the fall workouts, brings the colleges onto campus to watch our guys. Like it's pretty interesting, but it's not the AD doesn't. He's not doing everything by himself for those off-season sports.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's nice. That would make it a little better than for sure. And that is a ton of sports though, still. But
Yeah, yeah. I sometimes miss the easy. Public school. You play the same teams every year. That they're 20 minutes down the road. You know what you're getting every year. I miss those times. And my dad was an athletic director for a long time. I basically grew up in a high school, so my mom was a teacher as well. She still is teaching. I miss the easiness of the public school.
yeah,
It's different
definitely.
every year here.
Yep, I hear you. See, and I don't know, obviously, I don't know what the private school is like, but yeah, I'm the same way where as far as I grew up around the school, my dad worked at the school and actually my aunt taught me in high school too. I have an identical twin brother, so we were always around the school building. But well, coach, thanks again for taking the time to do this with me. I know we're on different time zones, so but yeah, thanks a lot for joining me and really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So I've recently started a Twitter page with the same name, 8-Man Breakdowns. I'm going to use it to share when new videos and other new content is coming out. That way everyone can stay up to date. So go check it out. And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. If you ever have a question for me, feel free to comment down below on this video or visit my bio to shoot me an email. If you've learned anything or enjoy any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in.